We're going to look at equivalent expressions and ways that you can use what you have already learned about distribution and the operation properties to decide whether or not expressions are the same. Now, we can represent some expressions in different ways, but they can still have the same value. So, for example, we talked about using those operation properties. So here we would have that 6 plus 9. We know that that's going to be equal to 15, but we also know that the commutative property says that we can change the order. So 9 plus 6 is also 15. If we were to take 2 and multiply that by what we have in parentheses of 6 plus 8, we would add 6 plus 8 together and we would get 14. When we multiply that times 2, well, 2 multiplied by 14 is the same. It is equal to 2 times 6 plus 8 in parentheses. And together, these equal 28. So let's look at what we have pictured here in this scenario. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shoes and 1, 2, 3 balls. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to assign variables to what I see in my picture. I'm going to use S to represent the number of shoes. And I'm using S just because it's going to help keep me organized since I'm talking about shoes. And remember, your variables are always going to be lowercase. I'm going to use B to represent the number of baseballs. Again, making sure that that's lowercase. So then I've got to come up with a verbal description. Verbal means using words that you would speak to explain this scenario. So let's say, for example, that Sam owns 5 shoes and 3 baseballs. Now that I have my verbal description, I've assigned variables, I can write this as an expression. I can say that he has 5 shoes, so I would multiply 5 shoes plus his 3 baseballs. It's that simple. That's as easy as it gets. So let's look at this next situation. When you have these long X's like this, we know there's 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know what their value is, so I do know that I'm going to have 4X. Well, then I have to figure out what else is left. I've got 1, 2, 3 negative 1s. So 3 negative 1s and 3 positive 1s are going to give me 3 0 pairs. So that means I have 4 left over. So 4x plus 4. So we would write this in words. This is just like the writing expressions that we did yesterday. We could say 4 times a number is increased by 4. So now here they give me an expression and I have to draw my model. So I'm going to make my 3 X's. I'm making them longer than the 1s because I don't know what they are worth. And then 5. So I'm going to draw 5 1s. And I need to write this in an expression somehow in words. So let's say the product of a number and 3 increased by 5 would be a great verbal expression using words to represent the expression that we were given. So now here what we're going to do is we're going to look at these 2 expressions, and we're at 2 expressions. They're separated by the word and we're going to decide if they are equivalent or not. So your job is to look at them, decide if they're equivalent. If they are not equivalent, you need to fix it so that they are. If they are equivalent, then you need to just say they are equivalent and move on. Let's do this first one together. Then I'm going to have you pause the video and solve the others. So here I have 3, and it is being multiplied by everything inside of these parentheses. So I know that I would need to take that 3 and multiply it by 4x and multiply it by 6. I have to distribute it. But in this expression, it has me adding those things together. Well, that means that this is not equivalent. They would not give us the same value. The correct way to do this would be to have 3 times 4x plus 3 times 6. It would give us a very different result. I want you to pause the video here, work out the other 5 problems, come back, and check your work. All right, check your work. We saw that in the second problem, it's not equivalent. They distributed to the 2, but not to the 8. Number 3 was equivalent. That's the associative property. Number 4 is equivalent. They just used a dot to represent multiplication here. Otherwise, it's the same thing. This one, the next one, is not equivalent. You cannot just change your grouping when you have division and subtraction, because with those two, order really does matter. You can only change your grouping if it's multiplication or addition. And then lastly, we had one that was equivalent. All right, one more time. I want you to pause this video. I want you to go through and I want you to work out these 4 problems and then come back and check your work. All right, check your work. If you missed any, check with the person next to you to see if they can help you figure out why.